My wife Lila stood in our kitchen doorway like she was auditioning for a soap opera, mascara streaking down her cheeks in perfect little rivers. Jack, I need space. I need to find myself. Mm-mm. I looked up from my beer, and the construction blueprints spread across our granite countertop. 22 years old when we met, 38 now, and apparently she'd been misplaced somewhere along the way, like a set of car keys. Find yourself. I set down my Budweiser with deliberate care. What are you, a teenager backpacking through Europe? Don't be cruel, Jack. This is hard for me. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, but I noticed she'd applied waterproof mascara. Planning ahead, our Lila. Hard for you. I nodded slowly, watching her performance. And what exactly does finding yourself involve? Yoga retreats? Wine tastings? Or maybe something a little more hands-on? Her face flushed. I knew you'd make this about sex somehow. This is about personal growth, about becoming the woman I'm meant to be. The woman you're meant to be. I repeated her words like I was tasting something sour. And that woman apparently can't coexist with a husband who works 60-hour weeks to pay for her personal training sessions and organic grocery bills. You don't understand what I'm going through. She grabbed a pre-packed suitcase from behind the door. Of course she'd already packed. I'm suffocating here, Jack. I need excitement, adventure, passion. Passion. I stood up, all 6'2" of me unfolding from the bar stool. Funny thing about passion, Lila. It's not something you find lying around like loose change. It's something you build with someone over time. But I guess 16 years of marriage doesn't count for much when you're having a midlife crisis at 34. She wheeled her suitcase toward the front door. I'll be staying with Sophie for a while, just until I figure things out. Sophie, her best friend since college, the one who'd been divorced 3 times and treated marriage like a subscription service you could cancel anytime. Perfect choice for a life coach. Take all the time you need, I called after her. But don't expect me to be sitting here waiting when you're done playing house with Sophie. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat back down and took a long pull from my beer. 16 years of marriage, and she'd managed to reduce it all to a need for space. I'd built Barrett Construction from nothing, turned it into $1 million business, bought us this 4-bedroom colonial in Riverside Heights, and apparently none of that was exciting enough for Princess Lila. My phone buzzed with a text from my buddy Sam. Heard Lila's car peeling out of your driveway. Everything okay? Sam Rodriguez lived 3 houses down and had the nosy neighbor thing down to an art form. Ex-cop turned private investigator. He noticed everything that happened on Maple Street. Just my wife discovering herself, I texted back. Probably find her at the bottom of a wine bottle at Sophie's place. Want to grab a beer tomorrow? Mickey's Tavern, usual time? Yeah, might need several. I spent the next 2 weeks in blessed silence. No reality TV shows blaring from the living room. No complaints about my work boots by the back door. No lectures about eating red meat or drinking beer from the bottle. I worked late, came home to leftover pizza and baseball games, and slept diagonally across our king-size bed. It was the best 2 weeks I'd had in years. And then she came back, and I was replacing the garbage disposal when I heard her key in the front door. Funny how she'd taken her suitcase but left her house key, like she'd known all along this was temporary. Jack? Jack, where are you? I stayed under the kitchen sink, wrench in hand, listening to her heels click across the hardwood floors. She'd dressed up for this. I could tell by the sound. Lila only wore heels when she wanted something. Jack, please, we need to talk. I emerged from under the sink, wiping my hands on an old towel. She stood in the kitchen doorway holding a bouquet of white roses, my favorite, though she'd probably forgotten that detail. Her blonde hair was freshly styled, her makeup perfect despite the tears she was trying to summon. The prodigal wife returns, I said. How was your journey of self-discovery? Find everything you were looking for? I made a mistake. The tears came easier now, more natural. A terrible mistake. I don't know what I was thinking, Jack. I love you. I love us. I want to come home. I leaned against the counter, studying her face. 2 weeks ago, you were suffocating. You needed passion and adventure. What changed? I realized what I had here, what we built together. She stepped closer, holding out the roses like a peace offering. I was being selfish and stupid. I know that now. Selfish and stupid. I nodded thoughtfully. That's one way to put it. Here's another way. You thought the grass was greener somewhere else, went to check it out, and discovered it was mostly weeds and dog shit. Her face crumpled. Please don't be cruel. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging you to try. We can get counseling. We can work on us. We can what, Lila? Pretend the last 2 weeks didn't happen? Pretend you didn't pack a suitcase and walk out because our marriage wasn't exciting enough for you? It wasn't about excitement, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, then what was it about? Personal growth? Finding yourself? I pushed off from the counter, moving closer. Or maybe it was about finding someone else. The roses trembled in her hands. That's not, I would never. Never what? Never cheat on your husband? Never lie to his face? Never come crawling back when your little adventure didn't work out the way you planned? Jack, please. Please what? Please take you back so you can do this again in 6 months when you get bored? Please pretend I don't know what really happened during your 2-week sabbatical from marriage? She was crying harder now, mascara running despite her best efforts. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. And it's over now. It meant nothing. There it was. The confession I'd been waiting for. It meant nothing, I repeated. 2 weeks of screwing around on your husband meant nothing. Good to know. Makes this next part easier. I walked to the front door and held it open. What are you doing? She asked. Giving you what you wanted. Space. All the space you need. But I said I was sorry. I said it was a mistake. Yeah, you did, and I heard you. But here's the thing about mistakes, Lila. They have consequences. And the consequence of this particular mistake is that you don't get to come home. You can't be serious. This is my house too. Was your house, past tense. You gave up your claim when you decided to go find yourself in someone else's bed. She stood there clutching her roses, tears streaming down her face, looking genuinely shocked that her apology hadn't fixed everything. Like she'd expected me to be grateful she'd come back at all. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. Back to Sophie's. Back to wherever you spent the last 2 weeks. Back to your boyfriend. I honestly don't care, as long as it's not here. He's not my boyfriend. It was just a thing, a stupid thing that's over now. A thing, I nodded. Well, that makes it all better. My wife had a thing with another man, but it's okay because it was stupid. She walked toward the door slowly, like she was waiting for me to change my mind. When she reached the threshold, she turned back. I love you, Jack. I know you don't believe me, but I do. And I'll keep trying to prove it to you. Don't, I said. We're done, Lila. Whatever we had, whatever we were, it's finished. You made sure of that. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for 20 minutes, crying and making phone calls. Probably calling Sophie, maybe calling her mother, definitely calling someone to tell them what a heartless bastard I was being. My phone started ringing around 9 o'clock. First Sophie, then Lila's sister Janet, then her mother. I let them all go to voicemail. By midnight, I had 14 messages, all variations on the same theme. Lila was sorry. She'd made a mistake. I should give her another chance. Marriage was about forgiveness. I deleted them all and went to bed. The next morning, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. My neighbor, Mrs. Daisy Patterson, had always been the unofficial neighborhood watch coordinator. 83 years old and sharp as a tack, she knew everyone's business before they knew it themselves. The note was written in her careful cursive handwriting. Jack, saw your wife with a young man last Tuesday night. Expensive car, fancy clothes. They seemed very familiar with each other. If you want details, I'm usually on my front porch around 4 o'clock. Daisy. I folded the note and put it in my wallet. Details sounded good. Mickey's Tavern sat on the wrong side of town like a bruise that wouldn't heal. Dark wood, dim lighting, and the kind of regulars who minded their own business. Exactly what I needed. Sam was already there when I arrived, nursing a whiskey and reading a newspaper like it was 1985. You look like hell, he said without looking up. Thanks, you always know just what to say. I signaled the bartender for a beer. Lila came back yesterday. And I told her to keep driving. Sam folded his newspaper and studied my face. You sure about that? 16 years is a long time to throw away. She threw it away, not me. I'm just acknowledging reality. The bartender set a Budweiser in front of me. I took a long drink and felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. So what's the plan? Sam asked. Divorce lawyer? Mediator? Trial separation? Information first. I need to know what I'm dealing with. I pulled out Mrs. Patterson's note and slid it across the table. My neighbor saw Lila with someone. Expensive car, fancy clothes. Ring any bells? Sam read the note twice, his cop instincts kicking in. Could be anyone. But if I had to guess, he paused, choosing his words carefully. There's been talk around town. Nothing concrete, just whispers. What kind of talk? The kind that happens when a married woman starts showing up at upscale restaurants with a man who isn't her husband. Sam finished his whiskey. Guy named Trent Easton, nephew of the CEO at Hartwell Technologies. That's where Lila works, right? Right. My grip tightened on the beer bottle. Tell me about Trent. Mid-30s, trust fund baby, thinks his uncle's money makes him bulletproof. He's got a reputation for chasing married women, treats it like a hobby. And Lila was his latest hobby. Looks that way. I'm sorry, Jack. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I drained my beer and signaled for another. Actually, it's exactly what I wanted to hear. Now I know who I'm dealing with. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Trent Easton picked the wrong married woman to play with. Sam leaned forward. Jack, whatever you're planning, be smart about it. This guy has connections, money, lawyers. You can't just what? Defend myself? Protect what's mine? I met his eyes. Don't worry, Sam. I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I'm not going to roll over and play dead either. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the evening crowd filter in. Construction workers, mechanics, guys who worked with their hands and didn't apologize for it. My kind of people. I might need some help, I said finally. Nothing illegal, just information. Background checks, surveillance, that kind of thing. Sam nodded slowly. I still have contacts at the department, and my PI license is current. But this is personal, so it's pro bono. I can pay? No, you can't. This one's on the house. He stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. I'll make some calls tomorrow, see what I can dig up on our boy Trent. In the meantime, you should talk to Mrs. Patterson. Old ladies see everything. I found Mrs. Patterson on her front porch the next afternoon, exactly where she'd promised to be. She was watering her flower boxes, but I could tell she'd been waiting for me. Jack, dear, I was hoping you'd stop by. She set down her watering can and gestured to the wicker chair beside her. Sit, we have things to discuss. I sat down, feeling like a kid called to the principal's office. I want you to know I don't make a habit of spying on my neighbors, she began. But when I see something that concerns me, I speak up. That's just who I am. I appreciate that, Mrs. Patterson. What exactly did you see? Tuesday night, around 11 o'clock. I was letting Whiskers out for his evening constitutional when I heard voices in your driveway. Your wife was there with a young man, tall, dark hair, expensive suit. They were arguing. Arguing about what? I couldn't make out all the words, but she seemed upset. He kept trying to calm her down, touching her arm, that sort of thing. Very familiar, if you know what I mean. I knew what she meant. Then what happened? He followed her into the house. His car was parked across the street. One of those fancy sports cars, silver or white. I wrote down the license plate. She reached into her sweater pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. Thought you might want it. I took the paper. How long were they inside? About an hour. When they came out, she was crying. He drove away first. Then she left a few minutes later. She didn't come back until yesterday. An hour, in my house, in my bed, while I was working late at the Riverside Mall project. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Mrs. Patterson, I can't thank you enough. Don't thank me yet, dear. There's more. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. I've seen that car before, 3 times in the past month, always late at night. And I've seen him at the grocery store with your wife. Very cozy, very comfortable with each other. 3 times. This wasn't a 2-week fling. It had been going on for at least a month, maybe longer. One more thing, Mrs. Patterson said. Yesterday, when Lila came back, I heard her on the phone in her car. She was crying, begging someone to take her back. Please, Trent, she kept saying. It doesn't have to be over. I can leave him. I can get a divorce. But whoever she was talking to wasn't having it. So that was the real story. Lila hadn't come back because she'd realized what we had was special. She'd come back because her boyfriend had dumped her. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. This helps more than you know. You're a good man, Jack Barrett. You deserve better than what she gave you. She picked up her watering can again. If you need anything else, you know where to find me. I walked home with my head spinning. Trent Easton had seduced my wife, used her for a month-long affair, then tossed her aside when things got complicated. And Lila had come crawling back to me like a consolation prize. My phone rang as I reached my front door. Lila's number. What? I answered. Jack, please. We need to talk. I know you're angry, but I'm not angry, Lila. I'm done. There's a difference. But we're married. We took vows. For better or worse, remember? I remember. Do you remember the part about forsaking all others? Silence. That's what I thought. Lose my number, Lila. And tell your boyfriend if he comes near my house again, he'll regret it. I hung up and went inside. Time to start planning. The next morning, I sat in my truck across the street from Hartwell Technologies, watching the employee parking lot through binoculars. Sam had given me Trent's schedule. He usually arrived around 9:30, left for lunch at noon, and stayed late most nights trying to impress his uncle. At 9:35, a silver Porsche 911 pulled into a reserved parking spot near the building entrance. The license plate matched Mrs. Patterson's note perfectly. Trent Easton stepped out of the car like he was posing for a magazine cover. Tall, lean, expensive suit, perfectly styled hair. He looked like every woman's fantasy and every husband's nightmare. I watched him swagger toward the building, probably thinking about his next conquest. The guy who'd destroyed my marriage and didn't even know my name. That was about to change. I spent the next week learning everything I could about Trent Easton. Sam's contacts had provided a detailed background check, and what I found made my blood boil. 34 years old, never married, trust fund worth about $2 million. His uncle had given him a VP position at Hartwell Technologies that he was completely unqualified for. 3 DUIs that had mysteriously disappeared from his record. A pattern of targeting married women, seducing them, then moving on when things got complicated. He was a predator, and Lila had been his latest victim. Except I wasn't feeling particularly sympathetic toward the victim right now. "So what's the plan?" Sam asked when I showed him the file. "I'm going to destroy him," I said simply. "Professionally, personally, socially. I'm going to take apart his entire life piece by piece. And then what? And then I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man he is. Starting with his uncle." Sam looked uncomfortable. "Jack, I know you're hurting, but nothing. This guy has been ruining marriages for years, and nobody's ever called him on it. Well, somebody's calling him on it now." I started small. A few anonymous tips to the IRS about Trent's questionable expense reports. A heads up to the state police about his new Porsche and his history of drunk driving. Nothing illegal, just information in the right hands. Then I got creative. Trent's favorite restaurant was Chez Laurent, an overpriced French place downtown where he liked to impress his conquests. I had a friend who worked in the kitchen, Tommy Nguyen, whose construction company I'd helped get started 5 years ago. Tommy owed me a favor, and he was happy to pay it back. The next time Trent brought a date to Chez Laurent, his bouillabaisse came with a special ingredient, ipecac syrup. Not enough to cause serious harm, just enough to ruin his evening and his reputation. Hard to look sophisticated when you're vomiting in the restaurant bathroom. I also had a word with the parking attendant at Trent's apartment building. For $50, Miguel was happy to make sure Trent's Porsche got keyed every few days. Nothing major, just enough to drive him crazy. But the real masterpiece was the social media campaign. I created fake profiles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all designed to look like scorned women from Trent's past. The posts were carefully crafted to sound authentic, hurt, angry, but not obviously fake. They told stories about a charming man who pursued married women, made promises he never intended to keep, then disappeared when things got complicated. Within 2 weeks, Trent's name was trending in all the wrong ways. The hashtag #TrentEaston is a homewrecker started showing up in local social media groups. Screenshots of the fake posts were being shared and reshared, each one adding to the narrative of a serial seducer who specialized in destroying marriages. The beauty of it was that most of the posts were essentially true. I'd just attributed other women's real experiences with Trent to fictional characters. The details were accurate, even if the sources were fabricated. Trent's uncle started getting calls from concerned business associates. The Hartwell Technologies stock price took a small hit when rumors began circulating about executive misconduct. Trent's dating life dried up completely. No woman wanted to be associated with the guy who was being called the most hated man in town on social media. I watched it all unfold from the comfort of my living room, tracking the social media metrics like a general monitoring a battle. Every share, every comment, every angry emoji was a small victory, but I was just getting started. The next phase required a more personal touch. I needed to get close to Trent, to make him understand that his actions had consequences. And I knew exactly how to do it. I started showing up at the same places Trent frequented. The gym where he worked out every morning. The coffee shop where he grabbed his daily latte. the dry cleaner where he picked up his expensive suits. I never approached him directly, never said a word. I just made sure he saw me. A construction worker in work boots and a hard hat, watching him from across the room. At first, he didn't notice. Then he started looking uncomfortable. Then he started looking scared. Hoff. The psychological pressure was working. One morning, as he was leaving the gym, I made my move. I was waiting by his Porsche when he came out, leaning against the driver's side door like I owned the place. "Trent Easton," I said. It wasn't a question. He stopped walking, his gym bag clutched in his white-knuckled hands. "Do I know you?" "Not yet, but you know my wife, Lila Barrett. Ring any bells?" His face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Blonde, about 5'6", works in project management at your uncle's company. You've been screwing her for the past month." "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Too late for that, Trent. You created trouble the minute you decided to play house with my wife." He glanced around the parking lot, probably looking for witnesses or an escape route. "Whatever happened between Lila and me, it's over now. She went back to you, right? So we're good." "We're good?" I stepped closer, close enough that he had to crane his neck to look up at me. "You think we're good because you threw away my wife like a used tissue and she came crawling back to me?" "I didn't throw her away. She made her choice." "Yeah, she did. And so did you. Now you get to live with the consequences." I could see the fear in his eyes now, real and immediate. "Good. What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to understand something, Trent. You picked the wrong family to mess with. You thought you could seduce my wife, use her for your entertainment, then move on to the next conquest without any consequences. But you were wrong. Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. See, guys like you think the world is your playground. You take what you want, when you want it, and you never think about the people you hurt. But every action has a reaction, Trent, and I'm your reaction." I pushed off from his car and started walking away. "This isn't over," I called back over my shoulder. "Not even close." Behind me, I heard him fumble with his car keys, his hands shaking too badly to get the door open on the first try. Phase 3 was about to begin. 2 weeks later, Trent Easton's life was in complete freefall, and I had a front row seat to watch it happen. The social media campaign had reached critical mass. Local news outlets were picking up the story, running segments about the Hartwell homewrecker and the impact of social media vigilantism. Trent's uncle had been forced to issue a public statement distancing the company from his nephew's personal conduct. But the real knockout punch came from an unexpected source, Lila herself. She'd been calling me every day for 3 weeks, begging for another chance, promising to make things right. I'd ignored most of her calls, but last Tuesday the first decided to answer. "What do you want, Lila?" "I want my husband back. I want my life back." She was crying again, but these tears sounded different, desperate instead of manipulative. "Jack, please, I know I screwed up, but I can't live like this." "Live like what? Everyone knows. Everyone's talking about it. The affair, the breakup, everything. I can't go to the grocery store without people staring at me. I can't show my face at work." "Sounds rough," I said without sympathy. "It's all over social media. Someone's been posting about Trent, about what he did to our marriage. They're calling me a homewrecker, Jack. Me! Like I was the one who was married to someone else." I almost smiled. The internet mob had turned on both of them, but Lila was getting the worst of it. The other woman always did. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to find yourself in his bed." I know. I was stupid and selfish, and I threw away everything good in my life for a man who didn't even care about me. But I've learned my lesson, Jack. I swear I have. Have you now? Yes, and I want to prove it to you. I want to make this right. How? There was a long pause. "I'll do whatever you want. I'll make a public apology. I'll tell everyone that this was my fault, that you're a good man who didn't deserve what I did to you. I'll humiliate myself if that's what it takes." Now she had my attention. "Go on. There's a town hall meeting next week about the new shopping center project. Half the town will be there. I'll stand up in front of everyone and tell them the truth about what I did. I'll take full responsibility." It was tempting, but not enough. What about Trent? What about him? He was 50% of this equation, Lila. You didn't have an affair by yourself. I don't know what you want me to do about Trent. I want you to destroy him the same way he destroyed our marriage. Another long pause. How? You have inside information about his conduct at work, his treatment of other women, his drug use, his drinking problems. You know where all the bodies are buried. Jack, I can't. Can't what? Can't tell the truth about the man who used you and threw you away? Can't protect other women from going through what you put me through? If I do this, if I expose him, he'll retaliate. He has connections, money, so do I. And unlike Trent, I keep my promises. She was quiet for a long time, weighing her options. Finally, if I do this, if I help you destroy him, will you take me back? I'll consider it, I lied. Okay, I'll do it. But I need guarantees, Jack. I need to know you won't leave me hanging out to dry. You have my word. It took her 3 days to compile everything she knew about Trent Easton's misconduct. Sexual harassment complaints that had been buried by his uncle, cocaine use at company parties, embezzlement of company funds for personal expenses, a DUI arrest that had been covered up with bribes and political connections. She delivered it all to me in a manila envelope, along with documented proof of everything she claimed. Photos, emails, financial records, witness statements from other women he'd targeted. And this is everything, she said, sitting in her car in my driveway like we were conducting a drug deal. If this gets out, it won't just ruin him. It'll destroy his uncle's company too. And that's not my problem. Jack, these are serious allegations. If you're wrong about any of this, I'm not wrong, and neither are you. This is all true, isn't it? She nodded reluctantly. Yes, all of it. Then Trent Easton gets exactly what he deserves. I took the envelope and started walking toward my house. Jack, wait. What about us? What about our marriage? I turned back to face her. What about it? You said you'd consider taking me back if I helped you. I said I'd consider it. I've considered it. The answer is no. Her face crumpled. But you promised. I lied. The same way you lied to me for a month while you were screwing around with your boyfriend. The same way Trent lied to you when he said he cared about you. Feels pretty awful, doesn't it? You bastard. You used me. Yeah, I did. And it was surprisingly easy. Almost like you wanted to be used. She was screaming now, calling me every name in the book. I went inside and closed the door, letting her rage at my front porch like a crazy person. The neighbors would talk, but they'd been talking for weeks anyway. The next morning, I hand-delivered copies of Lila's evidence to the FBI, the IRS, the State Attorney General's office, and 3 different news outlets. By noon, Trent Easton was in federal custody, charged with embezzlement, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. His uncle resigned from Hartwell Technologies that afternoon. The company's stock price crashed, wiping out millions in shareholder value. Trent's trust fund was frozen pending investigation. The local news ran the story as their lead segment for 3 straight days. Trust fund playboy arrested in corruption scandal. They interviewed his victims, showed his perp walk, detailed his pattern of predatory behavior toward married women. Trent Easton went from being the most hated man in town to being the most pathetic, and I had a front row seat for all of it. The final piece of my revenge came 2 weeks later, when Lila showed up at my door one last time. I hope you're happy, she said. I lost my job. Hartwell Technologies is laying off half their workforce because of what you did. What I did? I laughed. Lila, I didn't embezzle company funds. I didn't sexually harass female employees. I didn't cover up drunk driving arrests or snort cocaine at office parties. Trent did all of that. I just made sure people found out about it. You destroyed him. You destroyed his whole family. He destroyed our family first. I just returned the favor. She was crying again, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no second thoughts. What am I supposed to do now, Jack? I have no job, no money, no husband. Everyone in town knows what I did. I can't even show my face at the grocery store. You could move, start over somewhere else. Plenty of people do it. With what money? How am I supposed to start over when I have nothing? The same way I'm starting over. One day at a time. But you have your business, your house, your reputation. My reputation. I stepped closer, close enough to see the fear in her eyes. My reputation as the guy whose wife cheated on him with a trust fund criminal? Yeah, that's really something to be proud of. Jack, please, I'm begging you. Help me. I'll do anything. Anything? She nodded eagerly. Anything. I'll be the perfect wife. I'll never look at another man. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. The rest of your life, huh? I pretended to consider it. That's a long time, Lila. A lot of years to spend with someone you can't trust. You can trust me now. I've learned my lesson. Have you? Or have you just learned not to get caught? I've learned that I love you, that I never stopped loving you. No, you haven't. You've learned that actions have consequences. You've learned that the world doesn't revolve around your needs and desires. You've learned that some mistakes can't be fixed with tears and apologies. I walked back toward my front door. But most importantly, you've learned that Jack Barrett isn't the pushover you thought he was. And that's a lesson that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. Jack, don't do this. Don't throw away 16 years of marriage over one mistake. One mistake. I turned back to face her one last time. Lila, you had an affair for over a month. You lied to my face every single day. You brought another man into our house, into our bed. You threw away our marriage the minute you decided Trent Easton was more exciting than your husband. But I came back. I chose you. No, you didn't. Trent threw you away, and you settled for me as a consolation prize. There's a difference. That's not true. It's completely true, and we both know it. I went inside and locked the door behind me. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for an hour, making phone calls that nobody answered. Finally, she drove away. I never saw Lila Barrett again. 6 months later, I heard she'd moved to Phoenix to live with her sister. Trent Easton was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Hartwell Technologies filed for bankruptcy. And me? I kept building things. Houses, buildings, a new life. It's what I do. Some people might say I went too far, that my revenge was excessive. But those people never had to watch their marriage crumble while their wife lied to their face every single day. They never had to hear their neighbors whisper about what a fool they were, or wonder if everyone they met knew about their humiliation. Trent Easton thought he could destroy my life without consequences. He was wrong. Lila thought she could betray me and then waltz back into my life when things didn't work out. She was wrong too. I gave them both exactly what they deserved, the truth about who they really were, delivered with interest. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's story, I can live with that. After all, every good story needs a villain. And I've always preferred being feared to being pitied.